Hello everyone, my name is Akal and I am a astrological counselor, somatic therapist, and a men's sexual wellness coach. And if you'd like to find out a little more about what I do, my website is down below the video, and I also suggest pushing the subscribe button. Um, what I'm going to talk about today is it's a topic that a few men have reached out recently about, um, which is wet dreams. We can call these nightfall, we can call these nocturnal emissions, a number of different, a number of different things. Now, why is this a problem? It's only a problem if if you are in the process of wanting, of disciplining yourself, and your desire is to abstain from ejaculation for some period of time, which is incredibly helpful for those of us who are interested in increasing our sort of radiance and the spiritual pressure as it moves through us. Uh, it's also will increase your sexual potency, and I'll tell you that as a fact as well. So, what exactly is a wet dream? Well, it's pretty much, I'll take this through multiple layers here. So, most superficial layer, it's you ejaculate in your sleep. You have some sort of erotic dream or a fantasy that comes up while you're asleep, and boom, and you're done. I've had, several of these during the course of my life, and I've always found them, actually kind of pleasurable. However, they do interrupt, one's discipline if you are attempting again to abstain from ejaculation. So that's one way to perceive them. Another way to perceive a wet dream would be to look at it from more of a spiritual lens. So for those of us, again, who are practicing non-ejaculation as a spiritual discipline, one of the explanations as to why this might happen has to do with Kundalini. The last time I had one of these happen, it was maybe a few years back, and I'm 44 now, so these can happen well into your 40s. But one of the reasons that these can happen, well, there's actually two as I perceive it. One is on a deep level, we're talking about Kundalini. We're talking about what I like to call this sort of Shakti. I always, if I have one of these experiences, I always say Shakti came and visited me. The reason I use the word Shakti is that I look at the term Shakti as descriptive of the sort of, divine feminine, and I don't mean female, male. I simply mean the energy which is rising up through the body. So it generally encompasses, nature in some ways. So again, making the association of the physical body as being part of nature. And the Shakti is this creative reproductive capacity that is moving through us. And Kundalini Shakti is the latent energy that's coiled up at the base of the spine, which as you begin to move into your body through feeling and sensing, through different practices, through breath work, through yoga, through Tai Chi, Qigong, and practicing non-ejaculation, what ends up happening is you wake up this energy. The internal spiritual pressure begins to increase, and it gives you access to, some interesting woo-woo. I found that as I abstained from ejaculation for longer periods of time, I had greater, mental clarity. That's the most superficial thing that I noticed. But I also had more visions. I had more sort of, had a clearer connection to my intuition and my instincts, and, a number of other manifestations that happened. So that's one of the ways to look at it. The other way you can kind of look at this, and this is much more kind of a practical, okay, what do I do about this, is the idea of heat. So I did a lot of research as to why these reactions might occur. Some and some of the explanations were really interesting. But a lot of the explanations basically alluded to the need to reduce heat, the need to reduce inflammation. So why heat? Why inflammation? Well, let me go ahead and I'll talk about some of the other stuff I saw. So one of the things that they also said is don't sleep on your stomach. kind of makes sense for a couple of reasons. One, if you're sleeping on your stomach, you're going to apply pressure to the bladder. And if you have a full bladder, any of you who've had sex with a full bladder, you know that it's much easier to ejaculate. There's a pressure that gets placed on, I guess, that whole mechanism. So the other thing is that your genitals are then rubbing against something. If you're sleeping on your stomach, there's a pressure on the genitals, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of makes sense. If you can, try not to sleep on your stomach. That's a good recommendation. Some of the other recommendations, like I said, in fact, pretty much all the other recommendations had to do with this reduction of heat. So what can cause sexual heat? So sexual heat is very much, in my opinion, it is a top-down mechanism, meaning arousal. How does arousal occur? So arousal can happen from bottom up or top down, meaning if it's top-down arousal, it's largely due to the individual, the ego, the personality saying, I want to get high. And in this particular case, I'm going to say horny is high. They're equivalent. I love feeling horny. That's why I don't ejaculate. I love feeling this, sexual connection with the environment around me. Because everything in life kind of becomes sexual to some degree when you have this horny feeling. And again, I don't mean horny in the sense of I have to get laid, but I mean horny in the sense of your sexual energy is simply ramped up. And again, remember that this isn't the energy that's necessarily about sexual expression. It is also connected to your creativity. It's connected to your mental functioning. It's connected to the entirety of your being. So when you're running at high energy, it's a bit like you're making love to life. And I did a video on that. So you can go back through the catalog and kind of look at what else I've done. But that was one of the other videos I did. So this idea of reducing the heat, one of the ways you can do this is by reversing how arousal occurs. So meaning, don't go looking for porn, don't go thinking excessively, having sexual thoughts and fantasies. Don't edge yourself. If you're masturbating and you're edging and then you're backing off and you're edging and you're backing off, you're edging and you're backing off, what you're doing is you're creating this very genital focused pressure that's eventually going to want to discharge. So, and what it does is it's creating a lot of heat. It's heat up here and it's heat down there. And this heat is an agitation. It's an inflammation that wants to be reduced and hence released. So that would be the first thing, is allow life to naturally trigger your sexual energy, or bottom-up stimulation. Hopefully that makes sense. So something else that could really kind of trigger a lot of this heat is the, I guess kind of more like, I put them in the lifestyle category, which is the food you're eating, when you're eating the food, the light levels that you're bringing into I guess your being, into your body, and also grounding. So let me take each one of these at a time. So I'm going to start with light levels, because pretty much everything that I talked about with lifestyle is actually related to circadian rhythm, which is basically when you harmonize the physical body, when the ego endeavors to harmonize the physical body with nature, you naturally tap into your circadian rhythm. But this requires that you do several things, which is, one, you have to look at how did the human body evolve? Because whether you like it or not, our minds have accelerated, way beyond I guess in terms of the pace of human evolution. The bodies are lagging behind. So this lagging behind is the challenge here. So our mind, our personality, our ego says, oh, we can do this, this, and that. I'm going to watch movies at night. I'm going to do all these different things at night, when the reality is our body's not evolved to take on all these light levels, these artificial light levels in the evening. So one of the things you can do is you can buy some blue blocker. I have glasses, so I have blue blockers for my glasses. I clip them on, and they are basically amber lenses, and they simply block out a lot of the blue-green spectrum. Now, why is this important? So in the morning, the blue-green spectrum is what triggers adrenaline, cortisol, and wakes you up. So you have a higher green-blue spectrum coming from the light from the sun in the morning than you do in the evening. In the evening, as the sun goes down, it's red, yellow, orange are the dominant light frequencies in the spectrum. So now, why does this matter? So because cortisol, adrenaline, these are stimulating hormones. So if you're, again, triggering the release of stimulating hormones because you're getting all this blue-green spectrum coming in, there's basically a receptor in the eye that I believe is called melanopsin. Don't quote me on that, but I believe melanopsin is the name of that. So you can go ahead and look it up if you wish. The blue-green light triggers this melanopsin, which then triggers the whole cascade happens, the pituitary, hypothalamus, et cetera, and then essentially the cortisol, adrenaline levels increase. You wake up, you get out of bed. It's your juice to get going in the day. So the problem is, if this is happening at night, you're going to bed in a stimulated state. So this could be problematic. There's a lot of links of cortisol to fat storage, so you may want to look that up. But essentially what you want to do is you want to shift from sympathetic nervous system response, which would be high cortisol, adrenaline, the sort of stimulated stress state, to a parasympathetic response, which is a cooler state. And when you switch to the cooler state, what ends up happening is rest and digest. It means it's easier to go to bed. So this is what you want to do. You want to reduce the amount of light you're getting in the evening. So either the blue blockers. Now, if you're like very perfectionist about this, you want to shut off all artificial light. No computer screen, no light bulbs, nothing. All artificial light, turn it off within about an hour of bedtime and allow your body to naturally adapt. So, other words, meditate, do breath work, do some yoga, whatever it takes, So a couple other things is, has to do with, that's a light level thing. So another thing is food. So thinking about food, again, if you want to go into rest and digest, or other words, you want to have a deep sleep, a sleep that's undisturbed, one of the things you need to cut out is sugar. And you need to, in general, cut out any sort of stimulating food. So stimulating foods would be meat, they would be sugar, they would be high salt content, any of a number of different things. So really your choices of food, and I would say cut out all food intake for about 2 hours before you go to bed. Again, this is if you want to be successful. If you want to be successful, you cut out all food 2 hours before bed. And if you do feel the need to eat, think about, for me, it's more about I'll eat nuts, something higher in fat, something that digests very slowly, or just kind of, again, it doesn't create a lot of stimulation. But the best thing really is just green leafy vegetables. So again, any diet you're going to have within 2 hours of bedtime is going to be kind of, it's going to be sort of boring and not exciting. So I just suggest, do the 12-hour fast. Stop eating at a certain time and don't eat until you wake up in the morning. And it basically gave you about a 10 to 12-hour fast. So that's something else you can do, again, is you want to watch the food. Let's see what else. We have grounding. So grounding, why grounding? So grounding, the surface of the planet, has free electrons. Now, there's a lot of studies done on this. I don't want to belabor it, but the surface of the planet is free electrons. And you're like, so what? Well, I studied to be a dietitian about 10 years back, and I spent 2 years in this program. And for various reasons, I didn't finish. But one of the things that they were very excited about back then was this idea of antioxidants. Well, what is an antioxidant? Basically, it's an electron donor. That's it. So you can basically look at the surface of the planet and the free electrons which move along the surface of the planet as being, basically a gazillion blueberries. So when you put your bare feet, your bare hands, your bare body, your skin in contact with the surface of the planet, what's happening? Your body starts to take on these free electrons, which does what? Well, what have antioxidants been reported to do? Reduce inflammation, reduce heat, reduce agitation. So again, We're going back to this idea, reducing heat, reducing inflammation, etc. So that's something else you want to look into. You can sleep actually on grounding sheets. They're available on Amazon and different places. So that would be something else I suggest you looking into. Let's see what else. Exercise. You may not want to exercise too intensely before bed because sometimes exercise will excite us and wake us up, so to speak. So that's something else you may want to look at is like, do I really want to exercise before bed? However, it is a good idea to fatigue all your energy before you go to sleep because it's during the sleep that you recharge. Now, if you have like a reserve of energy, like you haven't done fulfilling work or you haven't exercised or taken care of your body throughout the course of the day, what ends up happening is you go to bed and you're not really sleepy, or you may be a little bit sleepy, but there's an agitation. The energy is still like, it's still buzzing. So it may be very difficult for you to go to sleep. So again, you want to make sure that throughout the course of the day, you're exhausting this energy. You want to work out, you want to do, again, gratifying, satisfying work, and this will help you deplete that energy in a healthy way. Let's see what else. So I guess that's all I want to talk about in terms of the lifestyle aspect. So obviously, again, everything is about reducing this heat or inflammation. So what can we do in order to have better sleep? Well, meditate. And I've already mentioned stop eating before you go to bed, but meditation is so incredibly important because the content of our dreams are often the content of like the subconscious. It's the things the subconscious wants us to perceive. One of the things I heard Yogi Bhajan, who I guess I technically call my guru, Yogi Bhajan, who's the guy responsible for bringing Kundalini Yoga to the U.S. back in the 60s or 70s or whatever it was, he made the statement that he no longer dreams. Why? Because he meditates. So in other words, you kind of work through your subconscious, backlog. He said meditation is about taking out the trash. You essentially take out the baggage, the emotional backlog, all these thought forms, what happened during your day, all of this stuff you're able to kind of like let go of in meditation. Now, how does this benefit you? If you go to sleep at night, if you've meditated, not only does it kind of like change the brainwave states and puts you into kind of a, don't quote me on the alpha or theta brainwave state, I may be wrong on the specific brainwave states, but regardless, there's a shift in brainwave state. And that shift in brainwave state is kind of the entryway into deep sleep. So again, you want to feel tired when you're meditating because that's when you can go deepest. So I know it's difficult to, like, if you're tired and you're like, oh, I'm going to meditate a little bit, you just get sleepy sitting there and then you want to lay down and go to sleep and then it's over. But again, like if you can give yourself, at least 10 minutes of meditation before you go to bed, you're going to notice a reduction in wet dreams. You're going to notice deeper sleep, better sleep, less disturbed sleep in terms of the emotional content coming to the surface or the sort of mental impressions coming to the surface. So that's something else you can do. Breath work. So a good breath, and this is probably the last thing I'll say. The breath work that I suggest doing are cooling breaths. Again, this is the whole idea, is to shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system response. So what that means is mouth breathing. There's a kind of a negative thing you can say about someone is you call them a mouth breather, which implies that they're stupid. Essentially, when you call somebody a mouth breather, I don't know, another way you could look at it is like, you're cool, right? Because what what happens is when you're breathing through the mouth, it sort of reduces the functioning of the brain. Like the mental activity of the intellect starts to reduce. Hence, that's why people make this association with you being dumb if you're a mouth breather. However, I like to look at it like this, which is if you do this before bed, give yourself about 5-10 minutes. Inhale mouth, purse the lips, be very intentional. Exhale out the mouth. And 5 to 10 minutes is a great amount of time to do this, but at very least 2 minutes. If you prefer to count breaths, count 30. But regardless, it's inhale, purse lips. Exhale. Just let the air fall out. Another cooling breath would be, you could inhale lips, exhale nose. Now that's cooling because it extends the duration of the exhale. And what does extending the duration of the exhale do? Well, if you have more exhale relative to inhale, that once again is parasympathetic nervous system response. Gets triggered, and hence it's cooling, de-stressing. So with all that said, hopefully you liked this video. Thank you for watching.